This is CBC Here and Now.
It's the 12th anniversary of the Cougar Flight 491 crash that claimed the lives of 17 people. I'm Jeremy Eaton. I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
Spring-like temperatures, the story today across parts of the island, but unfortunately that is not going to last.
They're a landmark in St. John's. These houses built out of the same rock as Cabot Tower. Now a piece of that history is up for sale.
When I walk in there, I can feel vibes that I've never felt before.
Get a peek inside. That's ahead on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. Those stories just ahead, but first, health officials announced new rules for rotational workers today.
Yes, testing when you enter the province is something rotational workers have been asking for since early on in the pandemic. Today, they finally got it. Any rotational worker can book a COVID test when they arrive, and it will give them more freedoms while in isolation. Let's break down how that's going to work. So, if the first test comes back negative and they don't have any symptoms, they can now isolate with their family. Those family members can continue to go to work and school. They can also all go for walks or drives or go to the cabin as long as they don't interact with anyone else. You can also attend a medical appointment. No one is allowed to come into the house, and then there's another test on day 7. If that test is negative, you can interact with people outside your household, but you must wear a mask. You can also go to the store, but you can't attend gatherings like weddings or a funeral or visit a long-term or personal care home. They're asking people to get a third and final test after day 11 before their isolation ends. All this will only apply to rotational workers. Other travelers can't get tested, and it only applies to people arriving as of today, so anyone in isolation doesn't qualify. For almost a year now, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald has resisted calls for entry testing, saying it was a waste of resources and might give people in isolation a false sense of security if they got a negative test. But she says everything has changed with the new, more infectious variants.
Given the situation with rotational workers where we knew that we wanted them to be able to spend time with their families, we felt it was best if they had testing when they arrived, and then the day 7 testing, of course. And then because they have this, the modified isolation, they were still going out into the community, that we wanted to have that third test just to make sure that we were picking up any cases. Because unfortunately, B117 is a tricky little virus, and we had people get, transmit it very quickly in a seemingly shorter incubation period, but then we had a group of people that seemed to transmit it, to have a much longer incubation period as well. So we're trying to respond to what the evidence has shown us.
So for some, today's changes will mean more time up close with their families. Here Now's Mark Quinn spoke with one rotational worker who's looking forward to more hugs.
It's been rough.
If you're an iron worker with a family in Newfoundland and a job in British Columbia, this year you've been spending a lot of time by yourself, at home and on the road.
I'm away in BC for 2 weeks, sometimes 3, depending on different timelines that we had to get to. And I'm home for 7, so really home for 5, but 2 days of travel.
For Collins, it's meant many months of keeping her distance from her 3 children. That's because with just 5 days at home, there was no time to get tested and get a result.
It's been rough. If you're a type of person who loves hugs and being around people, I find that the hardest. I have 3 daughters. They long for hugs from me as well. So each time I'm home, I don't get to see them, only from a distance. I have 2 girls with a lung condition, so I can't really take a chance either.
It's meant many months with no hugs.
We recognize the hardships that the pandemic and its restrictions has created for rotational workers and their families.
But with the changes announced today, she can finally look forward to more time with her children and with her own parents.
Well, I came home in December, so I had to do my 14 days isolation, and that was the first thing. As soon as my girls gave me a hug, they broke down and cried. So, Mom, we longed for this hug forever. So to be able to do that a little sooner, it'll be a lot helpful.
Of course, the pandemic's not over, and rotational workers like Collins know they'll have to be careful for the foreseeable future. But still, she's thankful for a little more freedom.
try to get back. I know it's a far cry from being back to normal, but every little bit at this point helps a little.
Some rotational workers say the pandemic has left them thinking about leaving this province altogether, but not Collins. In her words, home is home. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
The PCs have called for this sort of testing for rotational workers for months. Today, leader Ches Crosby says he's pleased to see point-of-entry testing.
That gives them more personal freedom in a graduated way, subject to testing. More frequent testing is something to be applauded, and I'm glad the government has listened to us in the opposition. We've consistently advocated for the interests of rotational workers to be taken into account, and this takes that into account. I also note that it's premised on frequent testing, which is something else that we've advocated for consistently.
Well, today was another day where the number of people recovering from COVID far outweighed the number of people getting the disease. There was just one person who tested positive. It's someone who was returning from an international trip. Because of that, they're asking anyone who was on WestJet flight 3428 from Halifax to St. John's on March 8th to get a test. Otherwise, today there were 12 new recoveries, leaving 57 active cases.
12 years ago, mechanical issues forced a Sikorsky helicopter to ditch into the frigid waters of the North Atlantic. 17 of the 18 crew members aboard Cougar Flight 491 were killed. It's a loss still felt by their friends and family members who continue to pay tribute today on the anniversary of that tragedy. Here and Now's Jeremy Eaton has that story.
He deserves to be remembered. They all do. Every one of them.
On a somber but sunny day in St. John's, Karen Delaney attaches a large poster to a chain link fence, not far from where Cougar Flight 491 took off 12 years ago. While Cougar Helicopters is no longer there, it's still where families start to pay their respects.
We're remembering everyone that went down that day, especially my nephew Corey Eddy.
A large wreath hangs with a handwritten card that reads, "John, love and miss you, Lori." Another note is from a daughter to her father. "Dad, I can't believe 12 years has passed since that awful day. You will never be forgotten." Delaney has no trouble putting into words how she'll remember her nephew.
He was the most fun, loving, caring person you ever want to meet. He always had a smile on his face. Never a dull moment when he was around. Never.
A monument near Kitty Lake is another place for families to pay their respects. But it's not just the families of those who lost loved ones in the Cougar crash grieving. March 13th, 1985 marks the 36th anniversary of the Universal crash, which claimed the lives of 6 people. Normally, the Eastern Chaplaincy would host a memorial service to honor the victims. Due to COVID-19, this year's was online.
I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you to our virtual time of remembrance as we unite our hearts and minds to lift up the memory of those lost to us on March the 12th, 2009.
Robert Decker was the lone survivor on Cougar Flight 491. Today, he changed his public Facebook profile picture and wrote, "Remembering the 17 people tragically killed 12 years ago and sending love to everyone whose life this changed forever." Then he thanked those who helped with his rescue and recovery and who have offered him support since. The flowers left on the monument near Kitty Lake will wilt over time, but for folks who lost loved ones on that day, they hope that their memory is never gone or forgotten, which is why it's important for them to show up each and every year to pay their respects. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
A reminder this weekend that on Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, the clocks will spring forward, and by Sunday night, we are looking at a sunset of about 7:05 here in St. John's, which is a sure sign that spring is on the way. And speaking of spring, it was a warm, beautiful afternoon today. Temperatures soared into around 6 to as much as 10 degrees, 7.9 degrees here in St. John's today. You take a look at those numbers across the board. Mild up through Labrador as well. Happy Valley, Goose Bay -1, and 1 degree in Lab City earlier today. We can thank an area of low pressure that's moved in with that southeasterly flow, bringing in some showers and all of that warm air, but this cold front is going to sweep through as we head through the weekend, so things are going to change. We're going to go from 7, 8, 9 degree weather down to back below zero with the potential for some flurries on the menu, and I will have all those details coming up.
Groups in Newfoundland and Labrador say that the province is in political gridlock. The deadline for mail-in ballots has been extended for 2 more weeks in the provincial election. So by the time the votes are counted, the province will have been without a sitting legislature for 3 months. Unions and others say that means a lot of routine business is not getting done while the province is in caretaker mode, and it's having a huge impact on service delivery. Here and Now's Chris O'Neill-Yates has been looking into that. So Chris, what are people telling you about this?
Well, Carolyn, I spoke with NAPE, and as far as they're concerned, they say a lot of business should still be getting done even under caretaker mode because it doesn't fall under that. They say it's the routine business of government. Things like the shortage of workers in long-term care, hiring social workers. They say they're short by 47. Hiring people to plow and salt roads. They say a lot of these things they're being told it's because of caretaker mode and they're not buying it. As well, I spoke to the head of Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador, Craig Pollitt. He says that capital works, things like water, sewer, all the sorts of works that municipalities gear up to do in the spring of the year and finish up by fall with a very short season to get them done are not getting done. And he says there is an inconsistency here and a lack of clarity when it comes to what caretaker mode really means.
It seems that there's far too much inconsistency across departments, and there's no clarity in general for folks who run up against this about why it's there, what it is, how far-reaching it is. If you go to the Government of Canada website, there's a very clear statement of what the Caretaker Convention is and how it works. And it specifically says that routine contractual work must continue. We don't have that clarity here.
So Chris, what about other areas besides public works?
Well, the doctors were in negotiations with the province before the election was called, the NLMA. This is not because of the Caretaker Convention, but it is 3 months now that the negotiations will be in abeyance, will be put off. And I spoke to the head of the Newfoundland Labrador Medical Association, Dr. Lynette Powell, and she says, you know, these negotiations really need to get on track fast the moment that a new government's in place.
But half of our seniors are living with 3 chronic illnesses. The Medical Association hears daily from people who are just desperate for a family doctor. As a family doctor myself, our clinic, our phone lines are going all the time, and that's a story we hear across the province. What we need to see is a very expedient return to the negotiating table.
So, Carolyn, I spoke as well with Michael Paul. He's a professor at the University of Ottawa. He specializes in constitutional and election law. And I asked him a little bit about what caretaker mode really means and whether people in government departments, deputy ministers and assistant deputy ministers can be writing to people like NAPE and the municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, and telling them that these works can't get done because of that. So here's a bit of what Michael Pohl had to say.
Generally, hiring would still continue if it's routine, but you could imagine it takes a big appropriation of public funds if it's an expansion of hiring or something like that. But generally, if it's needed to keep the government functioning in the regular way and it's not controversial, and a new government could change directions if they so chose, then it shouldn't be, the Caretaker Convention shouldn't be a hindrance.
Okay, so you also spoke with the finance minister. What is Siobhan Cody saying about how the caretaker government is working?
Well, she says this is necessary, but she doesn't see why people think that this is a hindrance. And she says there's a remedy to that if they are running into problems.
I would urge anyone that has any concerns to take it to the department that they would normally deal with, and that can be discussed with the clerk of the executive council and with cabinet secretariat to see if it meets the spirit and intent of both the Interpretation Act and the Caretaker Convention.
Carolyn, part of the issue is that we're in a very unique place right now. This is 3 months that we will be in caretaker mode without a legislature sitting. This is not something anyone in Canada has ever seen before. So easy answers to these questions are not very easy to find.
For sure. Certainly interesting times, Chris. Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
Well, you know, it's not every day a St. John's landmark goes up for sale, but one of the Four Sisters is now on the market.
Yeah, we're talking about the heritage property in downtown St. John's. They've become pretty run down over the years, but see for yourself. Here now's Katie Breen on some of the history and what it looks like on the inside.
They're iconic. The so-called Four Sisters houses on Temperance Street, made out of the surplus stone from that other nearby landmark on Signal Hill. That's the back of the Four Sisters, or 2.5 of the 4 anyway. See what's missing? Cabot Tower. Construction on the tower started in 1897. 2 of the Four Sisters were built before, and the others were finished after. It's the bottom one that's for sale, and technically it's a commercial property. The current homeowner used to run her business here.
She's hoping that someone will buy it and turn it into something like a restaurant that other people can come in and enjoy it. There's already a, you know, like from a business standpoint, there's already tremendous marketing built up around this and flavor around this property anyway.
There's potential, but it's a real undertaking. It's derelict inside.
You know, when you get into these kind of projects, anyone who gets into them understands, you know, what's involved. And it's not an easy task, but it's a task of love as well and passion. So you'd get in there and you'd restore that. You know, it would be costly for sure.
The houses have been abandoned a while. Almost a decade ago, squatters moved into one of the other ones. That was short-lived. Longer lasting was the smell of sewage. The sister houses reeked of it for years. Crews cracked bedrock installing a sewer system in the 70s, according to Judith Bobbitt. She owns 3 of the 4 houses.
When they built the sewage treatment plant, they had to fix the sewer here.
Bobbitt spoke to CBC in 2015 when she started restoring the homes. At the time, she said she'd been letting them deteriorate because they weren't of any value to her. Bobbitt still hopes to fix up her other 2, Hanlon says, but for now she's just selling number 31 and putting the money towards cancer research.
Those things have been corrected, to my knowledge, and now she's moving on selling. That one there has no issues whatsoever. With the, I should say no issues, except, of course, to restore it, right? You wouldn't be able to move in it tomorrow.
Like the name suggests, the houses were built for 4 sisters, the daughters of the stonemason who designed and built Cabot Tower. They were wedding gifts, but only 2 of the 4 daughters actually lived in the houses after getting married. According to Heritage Newfoundland and Labrador, one sister continued to live with her mother and the other died at 24. The homes were built from red sandstone and slate, walls each 2 feet thick. You can tell by the depth of the windows. There's a gap between the rock and the interior wooden walls for insulation and to keep it from rotting. Hanlon says it's held up.
They're not falling down. They're structurally sound.
A 2,200 square foot house, 4 bedrooms, 1 bath, down in the basement. The kitchen, or where the kitchen would have been, is also downstairs. That's presumably where servants would have lived and worked. You can see 3 stories from the back, but there's a 4th. From the basement, another set of stairs leads here. That's bedrock. But do you see an entrance to a tunnel? It's been rumored a tunnel runs underneath the 4 houses, dug so the sisters could visit each other.
I don't see evidence of that in this one, but that was the first one built, so maybe they added that in the other 3 when they put them in. But I haven't seen the tunnels yet, but I'm looking for them.
The Heritage Foundation of Newfoundland and Labrador designated the 4 sisters' houses as heritage structures in October 1988. This is the first one that's gone for sale since then.
It's amazing, actually. They're part of a historic part of our city, right? I've gotten hundreds of calls since my sign went on it, mainly people wanting to see the inside, but for some very serious investors as well, and people from off the island are interested as well.
So how much for this piece of history, the oldest of the 4 sisters? It's listed for $300,000. Katie Breen, CBC News, St. John's.
Wow. I always wondered what it looked like inside there.
Yeah, I suspect $300,000 is just starting you out with what you're going to need to deal with a place like that, but certainly iconic.
The song kind of talks about like the different phases of motherhood and how mothers are kind of navigating the pandemic.
I hope that people can find a few themes to like relate to within the term like isolation.
And now we actually have like a rainbow baby on the way, and then the words just started falling into place for me.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley is back with a look at the weather, and I love the mild temperatures today in St. John's, Ashley. It even kind of smelled like spring outside. It was a bit windy, but really still nice.
Oh yeah, especially when that sun peeked out earlier this afternoon. Everything is melting. Spring is certainly in the air. But as I mentioned a little bit earlier, unfortunately, this isn't going to last too long. But let's take a look at the highs that we reached today across the province. 10 degrees was the hot spot in Corner Brook this afternoon, 7.9 at the airport in St. John's, and then a number of areas seeing anywhere from 4 to as much as 7 or 8 degrees across the island. A little bit cooler for the Northern Peninsula as well as Labrador, Makkovik -4 and -5 in Nain earlier today. So we do have an area of low pressure moving through. That is bringing snow to most of Labrador, and then we've got some rain moving across the island. We're going to see that continue as we head through the overnight tonight, and then we're going to watch that cold front. So once that sweeps through, we're going to see some colder air move in, and it's going to bring that potential for some flurries. Certainly on the west coast, towards central we may see that as well. Otherwise, partly to mostly cloudy skies, the story across the island. And then for Labrador, the snow's generally going to continue. Much colder air, keeping everything as snow for coastal areas of Labrador, and some really windy conditions as well. That's pretty much the story tonight. Those winds out of the north, 60 to 80 kilometers per hour, so snow and blowing snow will continue. We're looking at temperatures dipping into the minus single digits across the island. So like I said, everything changing over from the potential for showers to over to flurries, and the winds are going to stay brisk tonight, anywhere from the southwest to the west, gusting 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. And as we head through the day tomorrow, it's actually looking pretty beautiful, certainly in the east, with sunshine, the chance of a few flurries as we head into the afternoon for the Burin Peninsula as well as through central. And then those onshore flurry potential will continue for the west and northern peninsula. Eventually the flurries will taper, or rather the snow for Labrador will taper to flurries, but it is going to stay breezy through most of the afternoon. We're looking at as much as 10 to 20 centimeters again, continuing for pretty much from Makkovik through to Nain. And then just south of that, from Black Tickle through to Rigolette, you're looking at a blowing snow advisory. So about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow on the way for tomorrow, with some blowing snow continuing through the afternoon, gusts upwards of about 80 kilometers per hour, and then that winter storm warning again from Makkovik to Nain. And that should generally taper off as we head into the evening hours on Saturday rather. Here's your temperatures tomorrow. Another beautiful afternoon expected, 3 to 5 degrees for portions of the Avalon, a little bit cooler as you head towards the Bonavista and Burin Peninsula. And then we're looking at flurry activity, but sunshine for the Northern Peninsula as well as central, and then generally gray skies, the story for the west coast. Temperatures near or just a little bit below zero. Winds will be a little breezy for you in the west, southwesterlies 30 to 50, and then a little bit less windy for the east with 20 to 40 kilometer per hour winds. So it will be a lovely afternoon tomorrow. Again, that blowing snow will continue. Temperatures hovering near or just below or just above zero rather for southeastern Labrador, and then back into those cool temperatures for Lab City at -15. The windy conditions will continue as well for Happy Valley Goose Bay, sitting around -4. Like I said, the winds will continue into Sunday, it looks like, as this area of low pressure sticks around, but I'll get into those details in the long range forecast coming up.
Sometimes it's just nothingness, but lots of times there are things there, and you get to understand what they are.
The Marine Institute has a new underwater observatory in Holyrood. Stay with us, we'll show you how it works and what it's capturing.
Welcome back. Salmon stocks in Conn River continue to decline, and while that is a stark warning for the South Coast community, it's not all bad news. DFO released new numbers on salmon populations in the province today. Here in Now's Garrett Barry has the details.
We don't throw the words local extinction around lately.
It's a striking warning with numbers to back it up.
Originally, we counted around 8,000 to 10,000 salmon per year. And we've seen this stock kind of decline over the past few decades to fewer than 200 individuals coming back to the river in 2020.
The stock in Conn River has reached a new low again. And today, DFO said the species there is at risk of being wiped out for good.
This is the first assessment that we've used the terminology of near local extinction. And I think the numbers kind of back that up, given the trends we've seen on these two rivers.
The question is, why?
The marine ecosystem is quite complex in itself. It could be a variety of issues such as optimal or suboptimal sea surface temperatures or physical conditions, the availability of prey, or the number of predators that could be impacting salmon abundance as well.
Whatever the cause is, I guess, I don't know if we'll ever know that for sure.
Chief Mizel Joe is putting his energy into developing a salmon-saving plan. It could include introducing new fish into the river.
I think New Brunswick has been doing that in other places. So if that's the only means we have of saving the river, then that's what we'll look at. I haven't seen a definite plan at this stage. We're drawing close to a time when we have to make a final decision, but that'll be made with a team of people that we have.
His community has stopped fishing in Conn River, pressing pause on a tradition that has gone back decades.
Well, it's been a part of our life, part of our culture, part of our food source for years and years before, before Indian Acts or before government, before 1949. You go back as far as you want, you'll find that this was one of the best rivers on the south coast of Newfoundland.
Even with this huge decline, he does have hope the stock will rebound.
Everything goes through cycles. I'm hoping that this is maybe I'm wrong in thinking that way, but rabbits go through cycles, other animals go through cycles. Hopefully this is another one. So maybe, we can help Mother Nature in some way by helping out in restocking or whatever we got to do.
DFO is stressing that there is a little bit of good news in this report. Numbers are getting better on the west coast, on the northern peninsula, and in Labrador. This report will be part of the process used to determine the rules for this year's recreational fishery, but that process won't be wrapped up until a little later in spring. Garrett Barry, CBC News, Gander.
Speaking of the oceans, the Marine Institute has a brand new way of gathering information about our ocean. An ocean observatory deep underwater in Holyrood is sending real-time data via a seafloor fiber optic cable. Jane Adey from CBC Radio's The Broadcast spoke with the head of the School of Ocean Technology to learn more about it.
I was interested to see that yesterday, that news release on an ocean observatory. I think it caught everyone's attention. But how did it come to be?
So ocean observation is something we've been doing at the Marine Institute for many years. Most of it being done with surface buoys, looking at meteorological and oceanographic conditions. We did a huge investment in Holyrood in the last 5 to 6 years in building a new building, a breakwater, a wharf, and also we were doing a lot of work underwater. And this observatory, or cable observatory, was part of that initiative. So we wanted to start measuring the ocean from the bottom up as opposed to from the top down.
Okay, so the first one on the east coast of Canada. Tell me what kind of information it's going to be collecting.
Well, that's a great question. Right now it's instrumented with a number of oceanographic sensors. So they measure things like salinity, temperature, currents, fluorimetry or fluorimeter. It has an ADCP, which is an acoustic system that measures waves and currents. It has a camera that captures 5 minutes of video every hour to look at subsea critters and animals and see how they're behaving.
How big is it and how far down is it?
So it's sitting at about 85 meters depth. It's 4.5 kilometers from our marine base in Holyrood. It's connected via fiber optic and power cable. The structure itself, it's about the size of a small car.
What do you hope to learn by having this observatory out there?
So really it's a, three phases. It has a technology development component. It has a ocean monitoring component. So this will be a long-standing, uninterrupted data set for oceanographic conditions, and also it's a great thing for outreach. So you think about youth and people young at heart who want to understand some of the mysteries of the ocean.
Will you have a way for the public to view this?
Yeah, so the data, they can link to our Smart Atlantic website where you can access the data, and you can go in and look at the data back since its beginning. It's only been there a few weeks, but it'll record 5 minutes of video every hour, and you can watch it. Sometimes it's just nothingness, but lots of times there are things there, and you get to understand what they are. And so as kids we grew up wading around ankle deep in, if we could stand the cold water, picking up sea urchins and starfish. Now you can see what's a little deeper, down 85 meters deep is quite deep. You don't see variation in the sunlight there, but the camera has a light that will turn on for 5 minutes to be able to see what's there.
Okay, well, good luck with it. Really interesting to hear about this initiative.
Thanks so much.
Welcome back to Here and Now. We want to take you back to today's COVID briefing. Families on the Avalon are being told to stick to their household bubble in Alert Level 4, which comes into effect in midnight, while those in Alert Level 3 are allowed what's called a Tight 10. That's a maximum of 10 close contacts per household. Today, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald took a moment to address some concerns she's heard from people worried about sending students back to class next week, where they'll be in classrooms with a whole lot more than 10 people.
The reason we want people to work from home and the reason we want people to reduce their contacts is so that we can reduce the risk and the spread in the community. And we know that if we have a safe community, we'll have a safe school. And, you know, we know that children need to be in school, especially younger children. It's a very important part of their social and emotional learning. It's a very important part of their lives. And so we want children to be able to live as normally as they can. You know, there's still lots of things that are very different about school right now with their going back. We know that PPE is protective. We know that we can reduce spread by wearing masks, by cohorting. So I think, you know, we're making the best decisions that will allow our children to be safe and to protect their well-being overall by letting them go back to school. And by the rest of us trying to do the best we can to reduce our contacts and reduce that spread, that will enable children to be able to stay in school and protect their health and well-being.
We know one thing that's going to protect everyone's health and well-being is vaccines, and now many European officials and health experts are pushing back. This after some countries have pressed pause on the use of AstraZeneca's COVID vaccine. They say there's no evidence that the vaccine increases dangerous blood clots. The World Health Organization today weighed in.
WHO's Global Advisory Committee on Vaccine Safety systematically reviews safety signals and is carefully assessing the current reports on the AstraZeneca vaccine. More than 335 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered globally so far, and no deaths have been found to have been caused by COVID-19 vaccines.
Recently, the drug maker also faced questions about its efficacy on older adults, those over 65. Despite these rollout issues, the vaccine has been critical to global inoculation to help fight the pandemic. It's cheaper and easier to store. Millions across the world have already been given AstraZeneca shots.
Ashley is back with a look at the long range. So you talked about Saturday earlier. How is Sunday and next week looking?
Yeah, so temperatures are going to slowly drop through the day on Saturday, and then by Sunday, we're going to get into some of that colder air, so that means the potential for flurries pretty much across the board. Let's take a look at the future tracker into Sunday. Flurries a story for the island. Eventually, we're going to see that snow for Labrador taper off, but again, it's going to stay windy through most of the afternoon, gusts anywhere from 50 to as much as 70 kilometers per hour in some areas. A ridge of high pressure is going to start to move in for Lab West, so things will be fairly nice with some sunshine, maybe a few cloudy periods. But it is going to be unsettled for most of Sunday for the island. And heading into Monday, things will start to clear off a little bit. We'll see a little bit more sunshine in play, but again, areas along the south and eastern portions of the island will likely see that flurry activity continue, and then into the afternoon and overnight, we're going to see that on the west coast again. So generally unsettled as we head into Monday. Here's your temperatures for Sunday. So back below zero, between -2 and -5, a little bit cooler along the strait at -6, and then back into those minus teens for portions of Labrador. Again, that sunshine in play late day or in the afternoon for Lab City. Some flurries to start, but eventually you will see that sunshine. And Nain sitting at -15. Temperatures really not moving too much into Monday, as we start to see that colder air move in with that ridge of high pressure, -19 for Lab City with sunshine. And then again, staying gray across the island, -2 to -5 as our daytime highs. and that potential for flurries will stick around. It does look generally gray as we head into Tuesday, and even into Wednesday. We'll start to see a little bit of sunshine in play, but temperatures will be sitting around back down to those minus single digits, potentially minus double digits overnight, certainly in those low-lying areas. And then we've got similar temperatures for central Newfoundland, a little bit more sunshine for Tuesday and Wednesday. But again, overnight lows, look at that Tuesday night, minus 17, it looks like. And then for western Newfoundland, keeping skies gray with those onshore flurries, minus 5 to minus 7, really. Maybe a little bit warmer on Wednesday at minus 4, but again, those overnight lows into the minus double digits. For eastern Labrador, after Monday, looks like things will clear out, but it will stay cold. Sunshine and minus 14 for Tuesday. Into Wednesday, you're looking at a similar temperature. And then for western Labrador, both Monday and Tuesday look like sunshine. And then a little bit of a low pressure system will move in for Wednesday. And we're looking at a temperature near minus 10. Now, generally things will stay cold. Looks like maybe the middle or end of next week, really, we could see a little bit of a warm up, but something I will certainly keep my eye on. Wanted to share this photo, winter view of Fogo Island. Gorgeous shot there. Thank you so much to Hayward for sharing that one with us. And if you have any weather photos, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
In national news, the Prime Minister says Canada will soon see another big boost in supply of COVID-19 vaccines.
1 million doses of Pfizer alone every 7 days. That's going to make a big difference. We have shared these updated delivery schedules with the provinces and territories. This is so they can continue to plan for mass vaccination sites to get you and your family protected as soon as possible. Every dose makes a difference.
Justin Trudeau says the increased delivery schedule will begin the week of March 22nd and continue until May 10th. That will help regions ramp up their own rollouts come April. It could eclipse last week's high of nearly 600,000 doses administered across the country. Between Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca, about 8 million doses are expected to arrive next month. That's more than what came in during the last 3 months combined. Well, there are signs of a potential economic bounce back from the pandemic. New numbers from Statistics Canada show the economy added 259,000 jobs last month. Trudeau pointed to the hopeful news today, but reminded Canadians about those who are still struggling.
The workers who are back on the job and for their families, this is the good news they need. Every step of the way, our focus has been on supporting Canadians through the storm. But let's not forget there are still far too many people for whom things continue to be really tough.
The unemployment rate fell to 8.2%. That's the lowest rate since March 2020 when the COVID-19 pandemic was declared. There are still about 600,000 fewer jobs than a year ago.
A statue of Canada's first Prime Minister is the focus of controversy in the city known as the birthplace of Confederation. The Sir John A. Macdonald statue in Charlottetown has been the target of 2 acts of protest in recent weeks, and that's raising questions around how and when the city will deal with concerns around the statue. Nicola McLeod reports.
This was the scene on Sunday evening after a bowl of seafood chowder was dumped on the head of Canada's first Prime Minister. It was hosed off for free, but last week the city paid $1,200 to have yellow paint removed from the statue after it was defaced. It also spent $1,700 in the summer to clean up this red paint. The mayor says the city is still trying to decide what to do with the statue.
There will be issues, I know that, and I feel that this vandalism or this defacing of this public piece of art is not acceptable, but some individuals are very passionate about this, and for me, I do not want to create a wedge issue.
Downtown, Canada's first Prime Minister is displayed prominently, but he's also regarded as a key player in the residential school system, which saw 150,000 Indigenous children separated from their families and subjected to abuse and neglect. The city says it is in a consultation process in order to tell this full story, but PEI's Indigenous groups say this has dragged on long enough.
The chiefs of PEI's First Nations say they have already provided their recommendations to the city and remains open to future engagement, but does not support the simple rewriting or addition of a small plaque to be an acceptable solution. In a statement to CBC News, the Native Council of PEI says City Council has strongly expressed their disinterest in revisiting the motion to remove or relocate the statue despite further Indigenous consultation. NCPEI is discouraged by the lack of timely response and proactive engagement.
My response is that we're working on it. It's just that we have a lot of hurdles, a lot of hoops to go through, and it will take place. But patience is very important for this process.
Now, the mayor says that those with concerns can reach out to City Hall or to their city councillor, but no public consultation process has been launched. Nicola McLeod, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Time to find out who's celebrating. Happy 61st anniversary to Michael and May Best of Port aux Basques. Congratulations to George and Joan Maynard of Corner Brook, who are celebrating their 64th wedding anniversary. Wishing Ray and Triffy Abbott of Bonavista a happy 54th wedding anniversary. Happy 59th anniversary to Ross and Madeline Fudge of Deer Lake. Anniversary wishes going out to Fred and Patsy Goodridge of Renews. They're celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary.
Happy 67th anniversary to Ben and Mary Rousel from Corner Brook. Happy anniversary to Garfield and Lily Bessie of Happy Valley Goose Bay, who are celebrating their 57th anniversary today. Happy 60th wedding anniversary to Golda and Ira Rogers of Twillingate. Wishing Harold and Jermaine White of Kippens a happy 50th wedding anniversary. Happy 54th wedding anniversary going out to Roy and Linda Cull of Comfort Cove, Newstead.
Happy 55th wedding anniversary to Jack and Hilda Penny of Shea Heights. Congratulations to Majors Sid and Rachel Brace in Conception Bay South. They're celebrating 63 years of marriage. Happy wedding anniversary to Jerry and Clara Burke of St. Mary's, who are celebrating 51 years of marriage. Anniversary greetings going out to Solomon and Beatrice Hurley of Comfort Cove, Newstead. They're celebrating their 61st anniversary. Happy 55th anniversary to Stan and Sadie Branton from Happy Adventure. Stan is also celebrating his 82nd birthday the same day.
Well, speaking of birthdays, happy 94th birthday to Captain Caleb Keane, who you might know a little better as Skipper Key. Happy birthday to Arch Collins from Hare Bay. He's turning 90. Happy birthday to Gertie Daly, who is turning 92. Gilbert Vineham of Botwood is also turning 92. Happy birthday. Birthday greetings also going out to Leah Tulk. 92 is a popular one. That's also her birthday.
Happy 90th birthday to Agatha Jesso of Cape St. George. And happy 91st birthday to Chesley Guy in Lewisport.
What a fine group of people celebrating.
For sure.
So it's Sunday marks a big anniversary. It is going to be 1 year exactly that we saw the very first case of COVID-19 in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Yeah, that's a big anniversary for sure. And Peter, you have a special interview that's going to be going along with that, right?
Yeah, we're going to have a number of interviews coming up and sort of stories that we're doing marking that 1 year anniversary. But I got to sit down with Dr. Janice Fitzgerald virtually, of course, because, you know, still doing the virtual thing with the level 5 lockdown being in place. And we got to talk about some of the things that we don't get to talk about in the briefing. So some of this was about, you know, what it's been like for her over the last year, leading the province through the pandemic, some of the challenges, both for her personally as well as in the job. And I think we also looked a fair bit at what the next year of COVID is going to look like, hopefully a lot better than the last one. So there'll be plenty of that coming up Monday on Here and Now. It's an interesting interview. Hopefully you enjoy it as well, Carolyn.
Yeah, it sounds excellent. And Monday is also St. Patrick's Day. I don't think there's going to be a briefing on Monday, right?
Nope. No briefing on Monday, but because it is the day off, even though St. Patrick's Day is actually the Wednesday,
Holiday.
Government gives the Monday off for government workers.
That's right. Well, speaking of St. Patrick's Day, Shalloway Youth Choir has recorded a pandemic-friendly performance. They created a music video for a classic Irish folk tune, Rattlin' Bog, featuring singers ages 7 to 17. So we will leave you with that tonight. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a great weekend.